first question, can you explain to me the new command structure? Once command is transitioned, right now you're handing over a transition for enforcing the no-fly zone. That will be handed over to a Canadian general, I understand. Will there be an American above him in the chain of command?
There are three components to the mission outlined in the Security Council Resolution 1973. First is the arms embargo, which is principally maritime operations. That's already been handed over to NATO, and there's an Italian admiral running that operation. Next is the no-fly zone. That is been agreed to hand over, and we expect that handover to occur this weekend, probably effectively on Sunday. And there'll be a Canadian three-star who will oversee that. Then the remaining mission is the Protect Civilians mission. And it is my understanding that NATO has agreed in principle to accept that mission, and they'll have discussions over this weekend as to specifically how to do that. What that will mean is that overall the NATO commander for the no-fly zone and the Protect Civilians mission will be the Canadian three-star. He will work for the commander of what we call Joint Forces Command Naples, which is a NATO assignment. That position happens to be filled by an American admiral. It is the same American admiral who is presently our Joint Task Force commander, Admiral Sam Locklear. And of course, they work for the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, Admiral Jim Stavridis.
Understood. What will your role be once the entire mission is transitioned over to NATO?
When the entirety of the mission is operated by NATO, then U.S. Africa Command will be in a supporting role. Libya, of course, is in Africa Command's area of responsibility, so we have overall U.S. Military responsibility for missions that might be that might entail Libya. So I won't at that point have any direct command authority over the missions which will be operated in Libya. That will be purely in the NATO chain, but clearly as an African country, it remains of great interest to me and to those here at U.S. Africa Command.
Will U.S. F-16s and F-15s still be fighting and flying bombing missions once the command is handed over to NATO?
It is clearly the intent that when the mission is accepted by NATO, that the U.S. will contribute what we call unique U.S. military capabilities. So I think it's likely to see capabilities such as U.S. aircraft that are very capable at the suppression of enemy air defenses or jamming systems. Certainly some of our intelligence and collection systems that are almost unique capabilities. But where other nations and other allied partners have a capability, for example, in aircraft that can enforce the no-fly zone or conduct air-to-ground operations, then I think you'll see the U.S. role greatly diminished in the near term, and ideally in the short term, others would take on those missions, and again, the U.S. would contribute our unique U.S. military capabilities.
Okay, and do you have, how seriously should we take these meetings that are taking place in Ethiopia with representatives of the opposition and Libyan government with the African Union? Is that something that's significant?
Well, certainly the meetings of the African Union are very, very significant. The African Union is an organization that in which most of the nations of Africa are members. It is a consultative, deliberative body to address matters of common interest to the African states, and so we think that effort is very, very important. I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the meetings of the Transitional National Council meetings, if that's who you're referring to, yes. Meeting with other states. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not tracking those kinds of meetings.
Understood. And sir, are under your command, is anybody providing weapons or help to the opposition forces?
No, we're not. We do not have a mission to support the opposition forces. We have a very clear mission to protect civilians. In doing so, we attack regime forces who are attacking civilians. Does that help the opposition? Well, it probably does, but that's not the intended purpose. The intended purpose is protect civilians, not to provide close air support or any other means of support to the opposition forces.
Do you know of any instances where non-coalition members are providing weaponry to the rebels?
Not that I am aware of, no.
And do you see a situation in the future where the mission could be broadened to include ground troops from the coalition?
Well, I think that becomes a discussion point within NATO or some other organization. We took on this first mission to protect the regime from slaughtering civilians. We've done that, particularly in the area of Benghazi. NATO will now take on this mission and establish the environment for which that will now allow for further discussions for the ultimate end state of what is it that the international community would like to see. So could you see a UN force or an African Union force or something in there to facilitate the provision of humanitarian assistance or in some other role? I don't think that's inconceivable, but I don't see that would be certainly not under the auspices of the coalition, and I think unlikely for NATO. Okay,
and last question. Do you, last question that went out of my head, oh, I know. Do you have information that one of Gaddafi's sons has been killed? Is there any confirmation of that, sir?
To be honest with you, Jennifer, the only place I've seen those reports has been in the media, and I think there's been mixed reporting about that. I certainly don't have any independent confirmation either way on that subject.
Understood. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add, sir?
No, thanks. I had a great day yesterday. I got to go see the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines at Sigonella on Mount Whitney and then out to Kearsarge. Lots of nations represented. What makes me most proud is how quickly this coalition came together to operate very, very quickly. We'll now make sure that this transition to NATO occurs very quickly and very precisely. It's a complex matter to do this transition while maintaining the momentum of the operation, but I'm convinced that this team that's been assembled can do just that.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, be in touch. I'll be in touch. We're just going to check paper.